Welcome again, everybody. In this presentation, I'm going to share with you the main sections or parts inside the PRIMA template, the part 2 or the scientific document or the pre-proposal, and also share with you some tips and tricks on how to develop a more competitive proposal. So just as a start, we may recap what Fabrice already mentioned, that in PRIMA, it is a two-stage submission. So we are currently on the first stage. So you are asked to submit your pre-proposal, which is two parts. Part one, which is the admin data. It is an online form that you need to fill on the electronic submission system, plus a PDF, a document to be uploaded. You can go to the PRIMA website, you download the document template for part one, and you fill it and transfer it into a PDF, and then you upload it to the system. The part two, which are going to explain in more details in the next slides, which is the scientific document of your idea or your project, which is the part two or the pre-proposal. Again, it's a template on the PRIMA website in our document Word format. You downloaded it, you fill it, maximum 10 pages, you transfer it into a PDF, and then you upload it to the electronic submission system before the deadline. Then during the second stage in brief that, okay, once again, you have the part one, which is the admin data on the online. You need to check the data of the first stage, and you upload as well an updated version of admin of the part one. Also, you will have part two or the full application, maximum 50 pages, and the new one, which is the budget sheet, one template for section one and one template for section two. Just to remind you that for part one and part two for section one or section two, it is exactly the same template for the two sections, for section one and section two. It is exactly the same. The only difference on the budget sheet, like you have a budget sheet template for section one and another one for section two. So this is very important. So today, because as we are still on the first stage, so we are going to share with you the details of the first stage, but just to get you familiar with the system of the application. For the first stage, you have up to 10 pages. So you have the excellence part and the impact, and we are going to explain each one of these items in the next slides. And as we said, maximum 10 pages. On the second stage, you will have more points to address, 2.2 under the impact, and you will have a new section or a new part, which is the quality and efficiency of the implementation, where you will mention the details of the work packages, the tasks and activities, the whole list of the milestones and deliverables. And the second or fourth part, which is the members of the consortium, the participants in the consortium, and if there is any third party. And final point, which is the ethics and security in case if you have. It is not a problem, but just you need to clarify to the assessor, how are you going to solve this issue? So not to, due to the restriction on the time, so we will just focus today on the pre-proposal or the part two, the pre-proposal or the scientific document for the first stage. Okay, you have the title of the project, and the best source to tailor and to draft your title and acronym is from the call text itself. So our tip for this part is you can brainstorm with your team about like playing the puzzle with the keywords until you have a very representative title of your project that can reflect the challenge, the scope, and the objective of your project just in a title. And we are not expecting like 3-4 lines as a title, but maybe like one line, for instance, or one sentence, single sentence to reflect the title. And as Fabrice already mentioned, you have the table of partners, countries, and the PI. And it's also recommended to keep always the same numbering order of your partners on the electronic submission system on part one, which is the admin data, as well as on the part two for the first stage and for the second stage as well. This is very important. And then now we will talk about the different sections under the pre-proposal that you need to fill. The first section or the first part, which is the excellence, as Fabrice mentioned, it is scored out of 5. And you have in the first stage, you have 4 points to address. 1.1, which is the objectives. Okay. For the objectives, you need to mention the overall or the general objective purpose of your project plus the specific objective of your project. Maybe you are familiar with this term, SMART objective, which is it has to be specific to the scope of your project plus the topic that you are going to address. It has to be measurable objective. It has to be achievable objective that you can achieve within the time frame and available resources. It has to be realistic, not to be overestimated, and it has to be timing, like it has to be achieved within the time frame of your product. You can use bullet points and some abbreviation like SO1 and SO2. So in this case, every time throughout the document, you needed to keep mentioning the full text or the full title of the objective, but just you can, like between two brackets, refer to SO1. So in this case, the assessor will match between this and the predefined SO1, which is specific objective one, and so on. You need to be precise and specific for the objective. Try to avoid the too ambitious or too open goals, because this is going to be negatively evaluated by the assessor. Not to say like, okay, my project, we are going to eradicate hunger in the Mediterranean countries, because for sure this is not expected from a project with like 2 or 3 million, but maybe this can be like the overall objective, but not your specific project objective. Reflect what is already written already in the core text. That's why we keep always advising to keep reading carefully again and again, you and your research team and your partners, the core text, to make sure that you are fully understand what is PRIMA is looking for, and then you reflect this on your project and on your proposal. Avoid general terms and narrative description, because sometimes we saw some very nice ideas and proposal, but they waste like 3 or 4 pages out of 10 for scientific details and scientific background. So this is very important to be considered. You need as well to specify the geographical coverage or the countries that where are you gonna to implement your project, the main stakeholder engaged to your project, and the target groups, and the main list of deliverables. Imagine that in your project, you will have like 50 deliverables. You need in the first stage to mention all these 50 deliverables. Otherwise, it may be take like 1 page just to mention the deliverables. But you can select like the top 5 or 10 main deliverables and mention this explicitly and explain them for the assessor during the first stage. The second point under the excellence, which is 1.2, the relation to the core topic. You are submitting your project tackling or addressing a specific challenge and the scope for a specific topic. So it's very important to reflect the relation or to match between your project and objectives and the topic that you are going to address. But this is not enough, because it is PRIMA topic is not just like working in a silo or in an isolated island, but it is under the PRIMA program. So that's why it is very important, and we keep advising all of you not just to read the core text, but return back to the PRIMA strategic research and innovation agenda. Read it so you will as well be familiar with the scope of the PRIMA under agri-food, for instance, or water and so on. So you will align your project not just to the topic, but also at the level of the program. Also, it is very important as well to check other EU and regional relevant policies and strategies, and highlight if your project, and we hope for sure, are going to be aligned with such EU policies or regional policies. So this for sure will add credit to the evaluation of your project. You can use maybe suggested like a tabular form to match between the challenges and the project responses and your project activities. Also highlight the target Mediterranean countries involved in your project and its demand. Like for instance, if a certain country in Mediterranean region suffering from water scarcity. So highlight this. So in this case, you will highlight to the assessor that your project will be of an added value or very important to those specific countries. Refer to any significant plans undertaken at a national or regional or global level. That's why we keep mentioning the SDGs and EU policies or UFM regional strategies and so on. This third part under the excellence, which is 1.3, it has 2 parts, subparts. First one, which is the concept, you will present the overall concept or the idea, the main ideas underpinning your project. Present the partners' knowledge and the rules and the interdisciplinary between partners. And this is very important and crucial because, as we said, especially for an innovation action topics, we are talking about a high TRL. So the engagement of different stakeholders like the private sector, SMEs, companies, research organizations, public authorities, all of these, for sure, each one of them will have a specific rule and the engagement in the project. So this is very important to be reflected on the document. Measure as well any public or societal or stakeholder engagement. Describe and position your project on the spectrum, like from idea to application, or from lab to market, or from farm to table. And this is lead to the second point about define the starting TRL of the technologies that you are going to use and the final TRL that you are going to achieve throughout your project life cycle. So it is very important, like maybe to have like a table or whatever. So you mention the initial starting TRL and the final TRL. So the assessor will evaluate the advancement in the technology and scientific advancement that you are going to achieve during your project. Also, it is very important to synergize and to show the complementarity with other regional or national or international research and innovation activities or other projects in the region, which is linked to or similar to your project. The second part under the 1.3, which is the applied methodology or the approach that you are going to apply in order to translate objectives into attainable results at the end. So here we are not asking you to describe the details of the activities and the steps, but what is really more important is the skeleton of your project and the work packages structure and the logic behind this structure and the interrelation between different work packages and main actions and activities. This is very important because you are all for sure top-notch scientists. So maybe you will spend like more time for and many pages for describing the details of the activities. Maybe you are going to waste valuable pages in this case. That's why we are asking you just to present the logic behind the structure, the main skeleton or the framework, the different work packages and main task and its relation. Present as well the technology that you are going to apply and it is rationale why you selected those technologies, not any other one. Differentiate as well the activities, if it is like a research activities or it's for demonstration, piloting, or for market replication. Analyze as well and refer to the gender dimensions and gender balance and at the level of the consortium, like how many percentage of males and females, for instance, in your PIs and project management and research teams, as well as at the level of the target groups and the final beneficiaries. The last point under the first section, which is the excellence, which is 1.4, the ambition. You need to mention the novelty of the idea and the added value of your project. Mention as well the innovation potential, like if you are going to introduce new products or open new market or some groundbreaking services, for instance, or business or organizational models. Why you are going to advance these technologies. So you need maybe to compare between the products or the solution that you are going to develop and the others already other alternatives already exist in the market, like you are going to decrease the cost or increase the efficiency or decrease the loss and so on. In brief, you need as well to nature and size the tackled market, and you can use some references, figures, tables, and charts when appropriate for you. The second section for the pre-proposal, which is the impact, there's only one single point under it, which is 2.1, the expected impact of your product. So you need to classify this impact into social impact, economic, environmental impact, political impact, or scientific or technological advancement. You need to be very clear and specific to the project and to the objective, as well as to the topic that you are going to address, as well as to the PRIMA impact as a program. So try to avoid general terms. Quantified indicators or measurable indicators is very important that when you say, okay, I'm going to organize workshops or develop some products or some solutions, it's very important to quantify this. Like, okay, we are going to have like 4 workshops in those countries. We will have 2 products, we will have 1 platform and so on. So it's very important to have a KPI, put a targets or values for them, mention how you are going to verify or measure these KPIs, identify as well the target groups, the beneficiaries, and how you are going to approach them, and geographical coverage. Cross-cutting as well issues is very important to be considered if this is the nature of your projects, like ICT revolution or gender issues or digitalization. As you can see here on the previous point, we keep highlighting the importance of the strategic research innovation agenda. Also, you need to refer to the enhancement in the innovation capacity, like you are going to create new market opportunities or strengthening the competitiveness of the Mediterranean products or starting new startups, as well as you are going to bring some other important benefits for the society. I think this is my last slide. Okay, just some final remarks or comments or recommendations for all of you. First of all, it is 2 sections, excellence and impact, or 2 parts in the pre-proposal. excellence, and the impact. So with equal score, each one of them are going to score out of 5. Equal threshold, as Fabrice mentioned in the previous presentation. So please pay equal attention to each section, because we used to see that sometimes they can, like some consortia may use like 9 pages and a half for the excellence and just a half a page for the impact. So maybe you are going to score like 5 out of 5 for the excellence, but you will score very low under the impact. So in this case, it's very important to consider, not to say that it has to be like 5 pages, because also you need to consider that under the excellence, you have 4 points to address, while under the impact, you have only 1 point to address. So, but it has to be like balanced or ratio, like maybe 7-3 or 8-2, whatever, but it has to be logic. It's only 10 pages, so use it wisely. Don't waste your space in the pre-proposal for mentioning the details of the activities and so on, but instead focus on the applied methodology, applied technologies, main actions, the whole work packages structure, the main outputs, outcomes, and the added value of your project. Quantify as much as you can the outputs, the activities, deliverables, and the KPIs. Present in brief as well dissemination, communication, and exploitation plan. Mention as well the IPR management and activities to different stakeholders. Show the interdisciplinary and the rules of your partners in your consortium, like the rule of private sector, rule of SMEs, and so on. Show the engagement of the stakeholders and the end user and the public, and how you are going to approach them. Networking and synergize with other national or regional or global initiatives or action or strategies. Use as well some references and figures, and you can invent some diagrams that can summarize to the assessor the main idea behind your project. And as Fabrice mentioned, we keep insisting that for all of you, for Section 1 or Section 2, please contact your NCP, especially if you are a Section 2, to check that you are eligible to participate. Everything is clear, and if you have any answer, please feel free to approach us at any time. Thank you so much for your attention.